and peace and equality.
We were going back to where we were. We were talking the children.
Yeah.
We were talking about how you advocated for the children who were shot at in the car.
Yes.
I believe this happened a couple of years back.
Yes.
So you're advocating boots on the ground. Tell us what happened that day. What was the injustice? Why you felt the need to stand up? Why did the police respond the way that they did?
Well, what happened that day? Actually, I was doing COVID.
Okay.
It was actually, and then I was burying my aunt.
Wow.
Jacqueline Tillman in Baxley. And when I came down from the graveside,
okay.
I looked at my phone and my son was with us, and we had gotten so many calls from Waycross.
Okay.
And at that point, I was very concerned. And then we left Baxley coming to Waycross.
Okay.
And I basically, because of the uproar in the city, it was only 51 miles, I called for a meeting to be held here on the grounds of the church at 4 o'clock.
Right.
At 4 o'clock, because the people needed somewhere to gather because of their direct anger and concern that something needed to take place. And I am blessed. I'm one of those pastors that they run away from until hell breaks out.
Right.
Then they come and want me to stand. That's fine. That's what I'm here for. The reality of it is when I got home to my house, the police chief was at my door. And my son was there with me, and the police chief tried to give me a scenario that took place, which did not make any sense at all. And I looked at him and said, "So you expect me to believe that?"
Wow.
That you got a police officer afraid of 6 children, and thinking they're gonna run over him and they're out of the car. Literally, the police chased after them and shot at them. As a result, we ended up having a meeting and bringing the city commission and all of those into question on this. But we also had, they went to their local other pastor to advocate on behalf of the police officers, because they could always find, and I know this is a word that people don't like to hear, but they could always find them a house nigga. They could always find them one person, and he went out and talked about the children, talked about the children's parents, and had no knowledge of them. But he was acting on behalf of the police. And that's what they've done in South Georgia. They will go to the pastors to get the pastors to advocate on their behalf that the police was right, and that was totally incorrect. As a result, we had to we ended up getting nationally involved in it. We had organizations that wanted to support us, and of course, we had a team to come down here and we had the children interviewed right here in this sanctuary. We had the parents interviewed right here in this sanctuary to talk about what the problem was and what we needed to do on behalf.
Now, let's go back and talk about how some of the pastors and how the system kind of works, because you hit a very key point.
Yes, sir.
Where you said, we got the house niggas, and we got pastors.
Yes.
We got leaders in the communities.
Yes.
Who are utilizing influential black leaders.
Yes.
Saying that, hey man, we did it like this. And has that taken the faith out of the black church for young African American males?
I think it has. There are churches that people will gather to, like ours, with somebody who's going to stand.
Right.
Reverend McKinney, our former pastor here,
said
something very clearly that I always use all the time about the pastor. Is something wrong with a yard dog that won't bark? You're paying the yard dog. That is the dog. You're feeding him to protect you. You're feeding him to watch out for the thieves. You're feeding him to watch out for the vandals. And the vandals come up, and you see them running with the vandals rather than barking and alerting you. And that's what, now understand this.
Right.
That has always been the case. They've always had, see, here's the key. If your dog is hungry, you ain't fed him yet, and the vandals show up with a biscuit.
Oh man.
See, that's where hush puppies come from.
Okay.
That's why it's called hush puppies. They used to make cornbread when brothers escaped Amen? Amen. And the dogs followed the scent. They would throw the hush puppies out to stop the dogs from barking. It was used good at that standpoint because they were able to take the dogs off the trail. That's where the song Wade in the Water comes from. Because when someone would, matter of fact, traditions in our church, when you go to a church and they're praying and then all the deacons get up and shake the hand of the one deacon that's preaching, that was the one deacon that was praying, that's the one that was going to escape that night. They came forth as a tradition to bid him farewell. When he escaped in the middle of the night, the master would get a hold of it and he pulled his dogs out. And the dogs would follow the scent of the person that was escaping. As a result of that, the slaves on the plantation from where he was escaping from would start singing, "Wade in the water, wade in the water, wade in the water. Children of God's going to trouble the water," because when you go through the waters, the dogs, you lose the scent and the dogs can't track you no more. Whoa. That's where "Wade in the Water" came from. It was a place song. We always use place songs. When we were going to have a meeting by the riverside, we'd sing the song, deep river, my home is over Jordan. When I fall on my knees with my face to the rising sun, oh, Lord, have mercy on me." So if I'm going to fall on my knees, I'm going to face the east because the sun is rising. So the actual meeting is going to be on the west bank of the river. So they were, because in 1763, they outlawed the beating of the drums. So we couldn't play drums anymore. That's when music in our church became so essential, because it was at that point that we used music as place songs to take us from our message from one place to another. The place songs, matter of fact, we even sing a song, "I got shoes, you got," because we doubted the master was going to heaven anyway with that hell he was giving us.
Exactly.
We sing, "I got shoes, you got shoes, all God's children got shoes. When I get to heaven, I'm going to put on my shoes. I'm going to walk all over God's heaven." Because everybody talking about heaven ain't going there.
No, sir. No,
heaven.
sir.
All right?
No, sir. No, sir. I agree with you.
So the black pastor during slave times has been utilized as the front boy. But also there have been some aggressive black pastors like Nate Turner. Like Nat Turner. Yeah. Those are the ones. And so it's been used in a positive and a negative. I am blessed, and my wife can go pick up, I want to show you off the wall, Keisha, Dr. E.D. Nixon, Dolores Pickett, and all of us. I was blessed to recognize, because my father was so much involved in the civil rights movement. And even down to the 75, we were boycotting here in Waycross. And we must utilize the positive power of the Black Pulpit. The Black Pulpit has enormous power. But what they've done over recent years is they've placed churches in 501c3s and they have now scared the pastor, amen, threatening his ability to raise money.
Yes, indeed.
In all of this, amen. And so therefore, I told them, you got punks in the pulpit. You got folk who are scared, who have the voice, who have the ears of the people, and they don't have the testicle fortitude to be able to stand up and do anything. My blessing is that I went to college. Now check this out. I went to college. I went to Troy University. My father died in Christmas morning of '79. I went to Troy University, and I went on the George C. Wallace scholarship. That was a scholarship that George C. Wallace. Amen. But the blessing I had is I ended up coming in contact with a lady there by the name of Dolores Pickett in Montgomery. She introduced me. I was the president of the African American Society in Troy University. And we did our first huge celebration when I was president. And Dolores was instrumental in that because they messed around and let me meet Dolores Pickett. She was the actual chief executive assistant to the governor after he went back in office. She's the one that got George Wallace back in office. And they were having a Miss TSU pageant at Troy that morning. They asked her to come to be a judge. And then they didn't have anything for her to do until 6 o'clock that evening. president of the college called me and asked me if I would escort her around campus and entertain her for the day. No problem. Dolores and I, we had a frat house, and we went and hung out there, and I introduced her to everybody on the campus. But when she came back, and I asked her to help me put together truly a Black History program.
Right.
She brought Johnny Ford, mayor of Tuskegee at the time, and president of the World Council of Black Mayors. She brought Lou Sharp, who was mayor of Urban Crest, Ohio. But she also brought a man by the name of Dr. E.D. Nixon.
Okay.
Dr. E.D. Nixon is the actual man that Rosa Parks called to bond her out of jail.
Wow.
He was president of the Montgomery NAACP, president of the state NAACP, and he was also a Pullman Porter.
Wow.
He was vice president of the Pullman Porters Union under A. Philip Randolph. They are the ones who put the March on Washington together. And when he came and spoke to us, he spoke to us from the perspective of Vernon Johns had done a story on him called The Forgotten Hero. And this is the man that actually got Martin Luther King started in the civil rights movement. Martin had only been at Dexter Avenue for 6 months. And they had already planned out the Montgomery bus boycott. When Ms. Rosa Parks got arrested and he got her out, they had the meeting, and it was E.D. Nixon that told Dr. King and all of them, the only thing you're concerned about anyway, you pastors, is what's in the collection plate, what's on that table. That sparked Martin, and he became a part of it. E.D. Nixon had already planned the Montgomery bus boycott. It was done. Martin stepped in, and because Martin had the eloquence and also the desire to do justice, they worked hand in hand. I was mad for a while with Martin Luther King because I met E.D. Nixon. I met the man who did the work, and he did not get the credit for it originally. It was not until in one of Martin Luther King's books that I saw him, and he actually gave E.D. Nixon the credit for getting it done. But the aspects of organizing, this man ran for commissioner in Montgomery, Alabama in 1926.
Oh, wow.
Now, you got to be strong.
You got to be very strong. You got to be very strong.
So what I did is I actually took my little yellow Subaru, and every Wednesday after class, I drove to Montgomery, Alabama, and picked up Dr. Nixon, and we went somewhere to eat, and I just wanted to learn. I wanted to glean. I wanted to get wisdom from this man, and it was literally phenomenal. There's more stories about him. We can tell you the man was, he's the one who actually introduced me to Wallace.
Wow.
Because I told him, I said, we were riding one day, and I said, that racist man, he's the governor. He said, hold it. He said, make a left turn down Dexter Avenue. He took me up to the Capitol. We went in the Capitol. We walked in the Capitol that day.
Yes, sir.
You hear me?
Yes, sir.
We went to the governor's office. He had an executive assistant, and the executive assistant had a secretary. We went past the first secretary, went in there and told the executive assistant, this man needs to see the governor. They cleared the Capitol for an hour.
Wow.
And he gave me orders with the governor. And Wallace was telling me a whole lot of stuff. That's all later on that conversation. But the interesting point that I want us to recognize is that we had bold men like E.D. Nixon. We had folk pastors who were called to the challenge. Martin Luther King, Ralph Abernathy, Andrew Young, Jesse Jackson, all of those were called to the challenge of making sure that the people were informed and we stood up as a people. See what they did, the worst thing they did for us in the civil rights movement is after Dr. King was killed, they started giving black folk jobs in corporate America that they had never had before. They gave them a job on a corner office on the 4th floor of the 5th story building. They put them on the top floor. They gave them a corner office and made them think they were somebody. And they literally neutralized the civil rights movement by paying the selected house Negroes to be able to keep folk white.
Wow.
And equality.